In a small African village, nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, lived a couple named Abini and Akin. They were deeply in love and dreamed of a happy future together. Their wedding was a big celebration with lots of music, dancing, and blessings from their families. The entire village turned out for the event, wearing their finest clothes and singing songs of joy. The air was filled with the smell of delicious food, and the sound of drums echoed late into the night. Soon after they got married, Abini and Akin welcomed a baby boy named Tayo into their lives. The birth of Tayo was a cause for even more celebration. The village elders offered prayers and blessings, and the women sang lullabies, praising the gods for this new life. Everyone in the village was happy and celebrated his birth. As the months passed, Abeni and Akin's happiness grew with Tayo's every milestone. He was a lively and joyful baby, always bringing smiles to their faces with his giggles and playful nature. Abeni and Akin doted on their son, and their faces lit up with pride whenever Tayo achieved something new, like his first smile or when he began to crawl. The villagers often commented on how blessed they were, saying, "May the gods continue to smile upon your family." The elders would pat Tayo's head and mutter prayers for his health and happiness. On Tayo's first birthday, the family decided to throw a big party to celebrate. The village square was decorated with colorful fabrics and flowers. Brightly colored streamers hung from the trees, and lanterns were strung up to illuminate the night. There was laughter, music, and the delicious aroma of food filled the air. Women prepared feasts of rice, beans, and succulent meat stews, while men set up tables and chairs for the guests. Children played games and chased each other around, their laughter ringing out joyfully. The adults sang traditional songs and danced, creating a lively and festive atmosphere. Abeni and Akin were filled with pride and joy as they watched Tayo take his first few steps. They clapped and cheered, their hearts swelling with love for their son. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Abeni held Tayo close and whispered, "You are the light of our lives, my son. We love you so much." Akin joined them, wrapping his arms around his family. "We will always be here for you, Tayo," he said, his voice filled with emotion. But that night, something terrible happened. Tayo suddenly became very sick. His once bright eyes grew dull, and he developed a high fever. He cried out in pain, and nothing Abeni or Akin did could comfort him. They were frantic with worry. Abeni rocked Tayo in her arms, singing softly to him, but his cries only grew louder. Abeni's mother, who was visiting for the birthday, suggested, "We should take him to the village healer immediately." Her voice trembled with concern as she placed a hand on Abeni's shoulder. Without wasting a moment, they rushed to the healer's hut, where the elderly woman examined Tayo. She checked his temperature, listened to his heartbeat, and murmured incantations. After a long silence, she shook her head and said, "This illness is beyond my knowledge. You must seek help from other healers." For weeks, Abeni and Akin traveled to nearby villages, carrying Tayo in their arms, visiting every healer and doctor they could find. They journeyed through dense forests, crossed rivers, and braved harsh weather, all in search of a cure. Each time they received the same response. "We don't know what's wrong with him." Abeni cried every night, holding her baby close. "Please, gods, help my son," she prayed, her voice breaking with desperation. Akin tried to stay strong, but he was just as scared. He held Abeni and Tayo close, feeling helpless and frustrated. One day, a distant relative visited and heard about Tayo's illness. She sat with Abeni and Akin, listening to their plight. "There is a powerful herbalist in a nearby village," she told them. "He is known for his wisdom and ability to talk to spirits. You should go to him." Desperate for a solution, Abeni and Akin decided to visit the herbalist. They traveled through dense forests and across rivers until they reached the herbalist's village. His hut was surrounded by herbs and strange symbols, giving it an air of mystery. The air was thick with the scent of medicinal plants, and the sound of chanting could be heard from within. The herbalist, an elderly man with piercing eyes, listened intently as Abeni and Akin recounted their story. His face remained calm and thoughtful, He then went into a deep meditation, consulting with the spirits. He sat motionless for what felt like an eternity, his breathing slow and rhythmic. Abeni and Akin waited anxiously, clutching each other's hands for support. Finally, the herbalist opened his eyes and said, "The spirits have spoken. There is only one way to cure your son." He paused, letting the gravity of his words sink in. Abeni and Akin leaned in, hope and fear mingling in their hearts. "What must we do?" Abeni asked, her voice trembling. "To cure your son," the herbalist said gravely, "Abeni must dance in the village square every night without clothes. This dance must be performed every night for the rest of her life. If she misses even one night, your son's illness will return, and it will be even worse than before." The room fell silent as the weight of the herbalist's words sank in. Abeni's eyes filled with tears. "But why must it be this way?" she asked, her voice breaking with emotion. The herbalist sighed deeply. "The spirits demand a great sacrifice to balance the scales. Your love and dedication to your son will be shown through this dance. Only then will the spirits be appeased." Akin's face turned red with anger and disbelief. "This is too much," he shouted. "How can you expect her to do this? It's humiliating." Abeni placed a gentle hand on Akin's arm, her eyes filled with determination. "If it will save Tayo, I will do it," she said softly. "I love him more than anything." Akin looked at her, his anger melting into helplessness. He knew there was no other choice. They had tried everything, and this was their last hope. "Are you sure, Abeni?" he asked, his voice breaking. She nodded, wiping her tears. "Yes, I am sure. Our son's life is worth any sacrifice." That night, as the moon rose high in the sky, Abeni prepared herself for the first dance. She felt a mixture of fear and resolve. Akin watched her with sorrowful eyes, feeling both proud and ashamed. He couldn't bear the thought of Abeni facing the villagers' judgment alone. "Are you sure about this, Abeni?" Akin asked softly, his voice trembling with emotion. Abeni took a deep breath and nodded. "I am sure, Akin. This is for our son. We have no other choice." As Abeni stepped into the village square, the villagers gathered, curious and confused. The square, usually filled with the sounds of laughter and trade, fell silent. Whispers spread like wildfire. "What is she doing? Has she gone mad?" Ignoring the stares and murmurs, Abeni began to dance without clothes. Her movements were slow and deliberate, a mix of grace and desperation. Each step, each twirl was a prayer for her son's life. The villagers watched in stunned silence, unable to look away. The moonlight bathed her in a soft glow, making her look ethereal, almost otherworldly. From the shadows, Akin watched too, his heart heavy with a mix of emotions. He admired Abeni's bravery, but felt the weight of their decision crushing him. The gossip and stares from the villagers were too much for him to bear. He clenched his fists, feeling powerless to protect his wife from their judgment. Night after night, Abeni danced without clothes. The routine became a part of the village's life. Some villagers pitied her, while others mocked her. Elders debated the morality of her actions. "Is it right for her to do this?" some asked. "Would you do the same for your child?" others replied. Despite everything, Abeni continued, driven by her love for Tayo. Akin, however, couldn't handle the shame and embarrassment. He avoided the village square and started to distance himself from Abeni. He became a shadow of the man he once was, haunted by the whispers and the stares. One night, after a particularly harsh confrontation with some villagers, Akin packed his things and left. He couldn't bear the humiliation any longer. "I'm sorry, Abeni," he whispered, tears streaming down his face as he walked away from the village and the family he loved. Abeni's heart broke, but she remained resolute. She danced every night, her love for Tayo giving her the strength to endure. Each night, as she felt the cold ground beneath her feet and the eyes of the villagers on her, she thought of her son and the life she was fighting to preserve. Over time, the villagers' attitudes began to change. They saw how much Abeni loved her son and started to respect her for her sacrifice. The whispers of madness turned into murmurs of admiration. Years passed, and Tayo grew into a strong and healthy young man, unaware of the true reason behind his mother's nightly dance. He often wondered why his mother disappeared every night, but she always evaded his questions, smiling and telling him it was something she had to do. "Don't worry about it, Tayo," she would say, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Just focus on your studies and your future." One day, as Tayo was playing with some friends, he overheard a group of villagers talking. They whispered about Abeni's nightly dance and the sacrifice she made to keep Tayo alive. Shocked and filled with a mix of anger and admiration, Tayo ran home to confront his mother. "Mother, is it true?" he demanded, his voice shaking. "Have you been dancing every night to keep me healthy?" Abeni sighed and nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, my son. The herbalist told us that it was the only way to save you. I did what I had to do because I love you more than anything." Tayo's heart swelled with love and guilt. "Why didn't you tell me? I've been living my life not knowing the sacrifice you've made." "I didn't want you to carry that burden," Abeni replied, her voice soft. "You deserve to live a happy and carefree life." Tayo hugged his mother tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I'm going to find a way to stop this, Mother. You've done enough. It's my turn to help you." Abeni smiled through her tears, touched by her son's determination. "Thank you, Tayo. You are a good son." Determined to free his mother from her nightly burden, Tayo sought out the herbalist who had once dictated his mother's fate. Now an older man, the herbalist was surprised to see Tayo at his door. "What brings you here, young man?" he asked, his voice a bit raspier with age. Tayo explained everything, his voice filled with urgency. "There must be another way. My mother has suffered enough." The herbalist, moved by Tayo's passion, thought for a moment. "There may be a way," he said slowly. "The dance was a test of your mother's love and endurance. Perhaps the gods can be persuaded to lift their demand if we show them that the balance has been restored." Tayo's eyes lit up with hope. "What must we do?" "We need to perform a grand ritual to honor the gods and plead for your mother's release," the herbalist explained. "It will require the support of the entire village." Tayo returned to the village and gathered the elders and the villagers. He explained the situation and asked for their support. The villagers, who had grown to respect Abeni over the years, agreed to help. They had seen her unwavering dedication and were moved by Tayo's plea. On the night of the ritual, the entire village gathered in the square. Abeni stood beside Tayo, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. The herbalist led the ceremony, chanting prayers and offering gifts to the gods. The villagers joined in, their voices rising in a chorus of support. The air was thick with the scent of incense and the sound of drums. As the ritual reached its peak, Abeni stepped forward and began to dance. Her movements were filled with grace and hope, a plea for mercy. The villagers watched in awe, their respect for her deepening with every step she took. Suddenly, a powerful wind swept through the square and a bright light surrounded Abeni. The villagers gasped and the drumming ceased. The herbalist raised his staff and began to chant an ancient incantation that had been passed down through generations. The words seemed to vibrate in the air, filling the square with a sense of solemnity and power. As the herbalist chanted, the light around Abeni grew brighter and her movements became more fluid and ethereal. The villagers could feel the energy in the air, a palpable shift as the ritual reached its climax. The herbalist's voice grew louder, commanding the spirits to release Abeni from her burden. The bright light enveloped Abeni completely, and then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. Abeni fell to her knees, overwhelmed with relief. The villagers stood in stunned silence for a moment before erupting into cheers, their joy echoing through the night. Tayo rushed to his mother's side, hugging her tightly. Abeni, tears of joy streaming down her face, whispered, "Thank you, Tayo. You saved us." The herbalist approached them, his face serene and wise. "The spirits have acknowledged your sacrifice and have granted you freedom. May your family be blessed from this day forward." The villagers surrounded Abeni and Tayo, offering their congratulations and support. The square, once a place of judgment and gossip, had transformed into a space of celebration and unity. Freed from her nightly burden, Abeni's health began to recover. The weight of the years of sacrifice slowly lifted from her shoulders, and her spirit began to brighten once more. The villagers treated her with great respect and admiration, recognizing the immense sacrifice she had made. They often brought her gifts of food and flowers, and many would stop by her home just to express their gratitude and awe. Tayo, now more determined than ever, worked hard to ensure a better future for his family. He studied diligently and took on various jobs to support his mother. His drive and dedication paid off, and soon he began to make a name for himself. He started a small business that quickly grew, thanks to his hard work and the respect the villagers had for him and his mother. Meanwhile, shortly after leaving Abeni, Akin remarried. His new wife was a young woman named Funky, and for a time they were happy. However, Funk's love for Akin was shallow, based more on his ability to provide than on true companionship. Akin tried to start anew, but he never had another child with Funka. As years went by, their relationship deteriorated, especially when Akin began to struggle financially. When Funka learned that Akin could no longer work due to his deteriorating health, she abandoned him, leaving him to fend for himself. He fell into poverty, struggling to make a living, and grappling with the harsh reality of his decisions. Hearing about the miraculous event that freed Abeni, Akin decided to return to the village, seeking forgiveness from her and Tayo. One evening, as the sun was setting, Akin limped into the village, looking frail and worn. He approached Abeni's old home, hoping to find her there. He knocked on the door, and a new resident opened it. "Good evening," Akin said, his voice weak. "I'm looking for Abeni and Tayo. They used to live here." The new resident, a kind, elderly man, looked at Akin with curiosity. "I'm sorry, but they moved to the city some time ago. Tayo has become quite successful and took his mother with him. They no longer live here." Akin's heart sank. "Do you know where I can find them?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. The elderly man nodded and gave Akin detailed directions to Tayo's house in the city. "It's a large house on the outskirts of the city. You can't miss it. I hope you find what you're looking for." With a mix of hope and apprehension, Akin followed the directions to the city. When he finally arrived at the address given, he saw a beautiful, large house. He hesitated for a moment, gathering his courage, and then knocked on the door. Abeni answered the door, her eyes widening in surprise and then filling with a mix of emotions. "Akin," she said softly, her voice a mix of shock and recognition. "What are you doing here?" Akin's shoulders sagged with the weight of his regret. "Abeni, I've come to ask for your forgiveness. I know I left when you needed me the most. I made a terrible mistake." Abeni looked at him with a mixture of sorrow and strength. "Why now, Akin, after all these years?" Akin revealed that he had been sick for some time and that Funka had abandoned him when he could no longer work. "I have nothing left, Abeni," he said, his voice weak and filled with sorrow. "I came back because I had nowhere else to go. I am truly sorry for all the pain I caused." Just then, Tayo walked into the hallway. "Mother, who is it?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. When he saw Akin, his expression turned from curiosity to anger. "Is this?" "Yes, Tayo," Abeni said gently. "This is your father." Tayo's face was hard, his voice cold. "Why should we forgive you? You abandoned us. My mother had to endure so much because of your cowardice." Abeni placed a gentle hand on Tayo's shoulder. "Please, Tayo," she said. "Everyone makes mistakes. He's suffering now and needs our help." Akin looked at Tayo, tears filling his eyes. "I'm so sorry, son. I was weak and afraid. Please forgive me." Tayo, moved by his mother's words and his father's plight, felt his anger begin to melt away. He sighed deeply, the tension easing from his shoulders. "All right," he said quietly. "You can stay with us." They spent a few months together, trying to rebuild their relationship. Tayo learned more about his father's struggles and the reasons behind his actions. They talked about the past, and slowly, they found some measure of peace. Akin expressed his deep remorse for abandoning them and his gratitude for the second chance. However, Akin's illness was too severe and he passed away shortly after. His final days were spent surrounded by the family he had once lost, and he found some solace in their forgiveness. Abeni and Tayo continued to live their lives, remembering the lessons of love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. They honored Akin's memory by ensuring that his grave was well tended and by speaking kindly of him. The villagers often told the tale of Abeni's dance and Tayo's success, teaching their children about the importance of love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Abeni's name became synonymous with strength and resilience, and Tayo was remembered as a devoted son who overcame great odds to bring honor to his family. And so, the story of Abeni and Tayo lived on, inspiring generations to come with its powerful message of enduring love and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child.